happening at just at the right time. You're probably aware that Shanghai, my hometown, is hosting China Import Expo. Oh no, that is really an interesting development. This is the second year, China, 40 years ago, China started, about 40 years ago, China started the Guangzhou Expo. And that was really important to China's economic development. You know, it made a huge contribution. The export growth in the first 2 decades had a lot to do with Guangzhou Expo. But I think the Import Expo, it's a signal that China is entering a different era. You know, it's you cannot just sell to other people. You know, 1.4 billion people all want to do is to sell to other people. Then what are other people going to do, right? So this is really a symptom of a lot of issues we are facing today. By the way, I don't think that the government-sponsored Import Expo is going to work very well. Look at Shanghai, this thing. It looks very political. You know, a day ago, they pretty much shut down the whole city for like the French president and the Chinese president, and they locked the whole city down. How could you have an expo when the city is locked down? You know, so I think this is the government. This kind of a government effort may not be the best. Probably it's much better for people like you. The market can do a much better job. But you know, I'm not sure marketing is entirely is the most important issue. And now I'll come back to the other issues that are preventing China from becoming an import superpower, like it is an export superpower. And this eventually will happen, but it's not going to be a straight line from here to there. The Shanghai Import Expo is happening because of the trade war. There is pressure on China that you have to buy more. So the trade war is one of a few issues that we are hearing today. You hear about Trump, America first, Brexit. You know, in Europe and all the protests. Why the world is suddenly in flux. Right? The world was like going around very, very nicely from after the fall of the Berlin Wall until a few years ago. It seemed like everything was going on very well. Suddenly, the whole world is falling apart. And I think that actually the story is there is just one story. There is just one story. Now you hear about 2 stories in the world. One is globalization. That is the rise of China. The other is technology. But I think that the technology is not as important as people think. You know, you look at everybody has a mobile phone. Does it make people more productive? And it doesn't look that way, because the global economy is not doing better because everybody has a mobile phone. So technology itself is not making such a big contribution to the world. It's really the rise of China. 1.4 billion people join the global economy. That has led to the changes we have seen in the last 3 decades. Okay, so you know, when I always believed that the world was spinning around China. And at 20 years ago, people thought I was crazy because China was so small. Because I'm from China, so I feel like 1.4 billion people doing something at the same time, the whole world is going to change. You know, so when China was joining the WTO, China's economy was about 3% of the world. Now is 15%. So obviously somebody has to give up, right? Some others would have to become smaller for this to happen. Who has become smaller? Now obviously you think of Japan. Oh, Japan has become much smaller. Japan was 10% then. Now it's only 6%. So Japan is giving up a lot. But Japan is stable. On the other side, look at Europe. Europe is like much bigger, 3.5 times as many people as Japan, and has given up also 4 percentage points. That is good news or bad news? We don't know. But I think that has a lot to do with how Southern Europe tried to become bigger, even when it was declining in competitiveness. So the way that it was becoming bigger was through government borrowing money to finance the social welfare, indirect consumption. So the Southern Europe had inflation. So Europe kind of did not deflate like Japan, which I think eventually led to debt crisis. So this is where I think the contrast between Japan and Europe, in a way, is that becoming bigger is not necessarily a good thing. When you're supposed to become small, you try to become bigger, then you get into trouble. So that's what we are seeing now. I think the Europe's troubles not over yet. Now, so there will be more troubles from Southern Europe. The countries that had inflation, probably will have some sort of a financial crisis. But on the other side of the world, you look at Russia. Russia has become much smaller. That is contrary to what people's perception. Russia looms really large in the world. It seems like it's everywhere, and people talk about Russia. Now it's like less than 2% of the world. You know, the Soviet Union was 15% of the world. Russia's economy is smaller than South Korea's. So this is where, what you hear is not the same as reality. Russia is becoming much smaller, and Russia is stable in that regard because it's become small, so it's become stable. But also, it's going to fade away. You look at Russia's demographics, aging, the shrinking of their labor force. So Russia is going to become much smaller country. I don't know how Russia is going to square between its ambition, its very large military, and its very small economy. And that conflict will persist for the next decade or so. So what they're trying to do is to sell weapons to raise revenues. So that is like I'm not sure that is good for the global stability. But the elephants in the global economy are China and the United States. They have gone about their business very differently, and that is why the world has so many issues. The United States has not become smaller. The United States has become bigger. Now, the United States is 23% of the world. In 2000, the US was 20%. So how does the US become bigger? Because the US has the global reserve currency, the US dollar. So basically, the US has been printing to finance consumption. And it's been, how do you print the money to finance consumption? By inflating asset prices to make people feel richer, so they go out to spend money. So it happened like before 2007 was the property market. Now that crisis in the when I was talking about that, people kind of in the middle of this situation, you feel like nothing really is that wrong, right? People spending money, what's wrong with that? People borrowing money to spend because their house is worth more. What's wrong with that, right? So then, but you cannot keep spending money borrowing against your house. So eventually it will blow up. So this is what happened in 2007. But since 2008, what has happened in the United States? The same thing. The US has been borrowing money. Who's been borrowing? Corporations borrowing money to do what? Buy back stocks, to pump up the stock market. The stock market now is worth, what's the valuation of the stock market? The cyclically adjusted price-earnings ratio is 30 times. That's twice as high as the historic average. And the market cap Now it's like $30 trillion. That's 150% of GDP. Historically, it's like 75%. So all indications are that the U.S. market is 100% overvalued. Who's pumping these things? The central bank, the Federal Reserve. When the bank is borrowing money, who they borrow from? From the central bank, because the central bank is buying bonds. The central bank's balance sheet is gone up from like $900 billion to $4.6 trillion. So the central bank has been pumping money into the economy, and the companies have been borrowing money to buy back stocks, so the stock price goes up. Why the company is doing that? Because the CEOs got their options plan. If you make the stock price go up, you get a big bonus. This is why CEOs' pay now is 300 times average pay. Compared to 40 years ago, it was like 20 times. So basically, this is artificial bubble. This is the biggest bubble we have ever seen. This is a bigger bubble than 2007, bigger bubble than the dot-com bubble in 2000. This is the buyback bubble, the mother of all bubbles. Well, I was known for predicting when the bubbles and when it's going to burst. When this bubble is going to burst? Probably not for a long time. So that's why I've been writing about this bubble. I always say that don't listen to me yet. It's not bursting. Why? Because the dollar is the reserve currency, and China is pumping it up. You think China and the United States are enemies, but China is pumping this up because Chinese currency is pegged to the dollar, and China is the production base. So when Chinese currency is pegged to the dollar, nobody can appreciate the dollar will be kept up because nobody wants to run ahead of China because you get chopped. Because China's cost is so low. If your currency goes up against China's, you get it cut down, right? So everybody is trying to hold down their currency because of what China is doing. So the dollar stays firm, even though Donald Trump is running $1 trillion budget deficit. When the economy is fully employed, everybody's got a job. Maybe everybody's working for Starbucks, but it's still a job. So it's still a job. So but Starbucks doesn't pay you much, but the stock market does. You're rich, man. Your 401k is worth a lot of money. So you can't go out and spend money. So when you listen to U.S. economists or the central bank, they always say that, the economy is doing well, everybody's employed, consumption is really strong, they all do that. Then you look at the manufacturing, it's going down. The manufacturing is still going down. So this is this kind of policy response to China's rise, basically pumping up asset markets to make everybody feel richer. So you spend, a little 1.4 billion Chinese people work to work for you. So maybe Americans think it's fine. I print money, give it to you. So what? Tomorrow you want your money back? I'm sorry. I'm not sure I can pay you back. No. So for Chinese, you feel rich, you get rich. Actually, it's not real. Yeah, it's just a trip. You feel rich. You have all these U.S. dollars, but one day they become worthless. So for Americans, they think it's all fine. But the issue is that this kind of policy of pumping up asset markets is leading to inequalities. Who's getting this money? People get some people get 401k money, but most people are not in the stock market. The problem is that the people in New York and California, they're in the stock market, but most people in the Midwest, they're not in the stock market. So they get whacked. Now, the income goes down, but they're not benefiting from the asset inflation. So that's why they voted for Donald Trump. And in 2015, at a conference, I was asked to predict who would win. I said Donald Trump. Everybody laughed. Because Donald Trump was telling people that you got screwed. That's what happened. So this is where I think that this policy, it's a policy mistake. When Japan is doing the right thing, Japan has a very equal society. And when Japanese told me 20 years ago, they went to China, they said, look at the Chinese people. They're just like Japanese. They can do whatever we do. So how can we make like income like 10 times of theirs? It's just that they're going to take us down, right? You have to assume that we're going to equalize. So how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? Whenever China does something, you cut it off. We don't do it anymore. Then whatever we can do, we make money. We try to make it go around in the whole society, so the society becomes equal. So Japan has become the most peaceful major economy among all the developed countries. It's because they understood that 20 years ago that you cannot fight against the tide. You have to just adjust. So, so Japan is being by focusing on the upstream position, equipment, and components. So they have some foundation in the economy that is not eroding, and they are stable society. So if you think if there's one safe place in the world, it's Japan. If you want to hide somewhere, it's Japan. So even though Japanese Japan economy looks depressed, but it's a safe place. So this is where I see that partly China. I think China's policy. China has been using the asset inflation policy in the West to maximize production. That's where both sides have pursued the wrong policies. And in the short term, they seem to cancel each other. It's like they offset each other. China is maximizing production to keep prices down, while the West maximizes asset inflation to maximize consumption. For the short term, they seem to be canceling each other. And when the people who got screwed, they rise up to vote. They have votes. They rise up to vote. Then we get into this deep trouble. So this is the unbalanced global economy for the last 20 years is coming to an end. This is the beginning of a long adjustment period, and the U.S. continue to inflate like that. China will not change. This is like for China is in the last 5 years. They thought that, well, our economy is doing well now. People are not so upset. So the focus is shifted to a very different thing, because the Communist Party realized the middle class society eventually goes what? Democratic. They want votes. When people so they realized that you got to change the society to entrench the Communist Party's control. So that's why the policy has shifted away from economic growth to internal control. We have this this China model. What's the China model? They're trying to say that the liberal democracy is not the tide eventually that will catch everybody. It's just one of the options. And there are many options. And the China model applies to many countries. So this is what China's agenda has been, to be accepted. Its political system to be accepted. So all the economic resources are being devoted towards increasing internal control and increasing the international acceptance of China's political system. So that's where, when China should be adjusting the economy to become a consumer society so the world would become balanced, it's not happening. So that is increasing the tension in the global economy we are seeing. So now the U.S. is still pumping like crazy. You look at it, Donald Trump, he depends on the bubble, the stock market bubble. He knows that every time the stock market goes down because of trade war, he always tweets something like, "Oh, we are talking, a fabulous deal is coming. Wow." So the stock market then comes back. Then something, it's like today, last night, this fabulous deal still not coming. The stock market rallied a lot in the last 2 weeks. Some of the financial stocks rallied 20% in like a couple of weeks because Donald Trump said a fabulous deal was coming. Then last night, Chinese president announced, declared its itinerary for visiting Brazil, South America. And the assumption was that the Chinese president was going to stop over in the United States to sign this fabulous deal. Then on the itinerary, the United States was not there. So the stock market, like a fool, just coming down a little bit. So in the next couple of days, if there's still no news, the market will go down. So China is trying to squeeze Donald Trump. He said, you see, that you depend on the stock market, I want more. I want more before I sign. So this is going to be complicated. But Donald Trump wants to be like the big guy, and he wants to be the bully. He wants to be the bully. But actually, he's quite weak. China knows that if the stock market crashes, you loses your election, then what happens to Donald Trump? He goes to jail. So Chinese president will be there forever. So he says that maybe I visit you in jail someday. Now, or man, you sign this deal, the deal I like. How about that? So next few days, it's going to be very interesting. See how Donald Trump handles this if the stock market starts to go down. So his fate is entirely driven by by that. So this is where now the world is slowing down. Probably you guys already have noticed. All the international agencies are saying that we're talking about maybe 2% global growth, and previously was like 4%. So it's slowing down. When it slows down, the problem is that when it slows down, in high leverage economies, you're gonna have debt crisis. So then you can plunge. You could plunge. So there could be another crisis. So this is where I'm not. Maybe this time, like in the last 10 years, really the central banks have been keeping everything afloat. The governments haven't done nothing to restart the economy. We're still in the same situation like 10 years ago. It's like the central banks printing money to keep everybody afloat. So this is where, a lot of people, you say that China will blow up first. I don't think so, because the reason is that Chinese government is already not increasing debt like before, and then they whatever money they have, they just use the money to bail out the financial institutions. So China is going to have slow growth, but no blow up. So because the government, Chinese financial system is under the government's control, so that's what they can do. So if between the U.S. and China, the U.S. could blow up first, like before, because it's a market-based financial system. Half of the assets now, half of the debt is with in the shadow banking system, all these funds. We don't know what's going on there. So right now, the banks are okay. Banks have lots of capital, but the shadow banking system is really dangerous. I often get invited by these shadow bankers to talk to them. I always say, look at these guys. I get spooked. These guys look really dangerous, So they look very dangerous because the incentive is really skewed. They paid to take as much risk as possible. You flip a coin, if the world doesn't blow up, you get paid. If the world blows up, your clients lose money. You don't lose money. So the incentive system in the financial system is creating this kind of a debt bubble, because the guys who run the money, they have no downside. They only get paid for taking more and more risk. So, but no, the Fed is kind of in the pocket of these speculators, I think. That, the Fed will bail them out, I think, eventually. So then comes down to Europe. Europe looks dangerous. Because Europe, a lot of countries, they cannot print money. The central bank is not a country's central bank. So if a country gets into trouble, all the countries have to come together to agree to bail out this country. There's a period of time. So that period of time can create chaos. So because we are in a debt bubble in the world, it has a lot to do with psychology. Has a lot to do, the world is functions on psychology. If you have a period like Donald Trump, every time the stock market goes down a few days, he gets spooked. He tries to get the market back. Because once the psychology breaks, you cannot get it back. So you go from after inflation to deflation. So then you got screwed. So this is why the Europe is dangerous, because Europe is not does not have a structure to act quickly. So we could have a period of financial chaos from then. So this is sort of interesting. My observation is that the most dangerous world is not China or the United States, it's actually Europe. if something bad is going to happen, in the next round it's probably going to be Europe. So that sounds all kind of dark, pessimistic. The world is slowing down. Another debt crisis may be lurking somewhere. Now, what about technology, globalization, the things that bring us good things, why they are not working? So I think that good things will come. Eventually, people stop pretending. They have to address these things, that the imbalance between the East and the West, how it should be addressed. I think the solution is in China. I always tell people, like my friends in China, when they ask me who can save the world, I said, you. It's only China can save the world. Because people are used to the United States saving the world. It's not true anymore. The U.S. is fully loaded. Their debt is like here. They cannot breathe. They cannot breathe anymore. So they're really topping up until they're topping up like that. And so only China. So China's per capita income is only $10,000. Consumption, household consumption, by my calculation, is only 30% of that. $3,000 of consumption. Chinese people may be frugal, but not that frugal. It's consumption so low. It's because of the government policy. What's the government policy? First, the income, the labor income, half is taken away by the government. It's not the usual government like income tax. It's like all these contributions to funds, social security, and the government, if the money goes there for what? For investment. So China's investment is like a half of GDP. And China is investing more than the rest of the world combined. So this is a kind of and China's investment is like, you look at it in nominal terms, is like maybe $7 trillion. China is investing like over $2 trillion in infrastructure every year. The United States is talking about infrastructure investment for $2 trillion for many years, on $2 trillion. China is doing that every year. So China doesn't have to do that anymore. Like 20 years ago, like in 1998, China didn't have superhighway. Now superhighway is like 130,000 kilometers, much bigger than the US. Why are you adding 10,000 every year? This is a really momentum, right? You cannot stop, because so many people are doing that, and their life is about doing more. So the government is not changing, so we keep doing more and more. And the productivity of this investment is slowing down. Initially, when you build highways, you have a lot of productivity, but eventually you have too many. Then the highways don't have enough cars. Then you have problems. So this is what we're seeing now. I went to one of the provinces. One of the provinces is saw that they're building a double-decker highway, but the first level still no cars. Why are you building another one? So this is then after after the level 2. Afterwards, what are they going to do? Level 3, keep going. So this is you look at the Hong Kong-Macau bridge, the Zhuhai Bridge. It's what is the cost? It's about 12 or 13 billion US dollars. You look at the number of cars on the bridge, it's very small, really small. So this is sort of we were laughing at Japan for building highway to nowhere. So we're building highway to the heaven now. So this is like, we don't go that way, go this way. So I think that that kind of that is we have a huge issue, and that issue is kind of related to political politics. The government is very strong, very powerful. So many people, they must have something to do. That's the issue. That's the problem. That's the momentum. They must have something to do. So it's kind of a generational thing. You look at Japan. Japan's agriculture sector was locked up for so long, until like recently. Why Japan now can open the agriculture sector? Because the farmers are dead. So the farmers, you don't see farmers out there protesting against the American rice anymore, because the farmers are dead. So for China, it's like that. It's like I look at the China situation, kind of comparable to the Japanese thing. You know, I was educated as an engineer. All my classmates are doing this thing forever, right? They're building more and more and more forever. I think that China has to wait for the time when the engineers are dead. When they are dead, China stops building. So when that would it be? I think that from that I look at the demographics. I think it's 10 years away. It's kind of 10 years away. It's oftentimes economics is not about money, price. It's about a generation, culture. So we have one generation who grew up during poverty, and it became very productive and super productive, always working. When I talk to my classmates, I ask them, what do you do for on your weekend? They always look at me like, what do you mean? So, because they don't do anything, they keep working. So this is sort of over the next. So this, if China does not become a consumer society, for the world, it's like it's a big challenge. China is producing half of the steel in the world. China could produce 100%. When I go to China, look at the steel mills, the most efficient in the world. And the cost is really low. If we have a real free market, everybody shuts down. Everybody else shuts down. It's just China. So when you look at the next wave of investment, in addition to infrastructure, in the capital-intensive business like petrochemicals and so forth, I see another wave of deflation for many other countries. When China creates capital, it's the latest new capital. It's the most efficient, right? But all the existing capital elsewhere, it's old. It's been around for like 20 years. It's not efficient. It cannot compete. So this issue this issue, I think that global trade friction is going to be there. Now China's import-export, so far, I think is largely a propaganda thing. It really doesn't solve the problem. China has to really open up. If you don't open up, other people are not going to play ball anymore. It's you can. It's like 20 years ago when China joined the WTO. Lots of people did not understand how important it was, right? When we had a conference call at the Morgan Stanley economics team. We had a conference call every week to talk about the world. Now, my American colleague asked me, what does it mean? I said, you guys should take some time off. Let the Chinese work for you for a couple of decades. At that time, they thought it was funny. You know, the Americans said, no, we have to work. But my French colleague said, okay, we can take some time off. So kind of so that led to these Americans working, creating bubbles, but they could not compete in production. So they went into all these bubble stuff for stock market, housing market, bond market, right? So finance. Everybody want to work for a bank. That's what happened in the United States. It's just total waste. You're just working. It's unproductive labor. Well, in Europe, they really slowed down. They had to cut down to 35 hours. Then how did they have a good time? The governments borrowed the money. So that is what's going on. But I think that when the world changes, and every time we have a major change, we have a bull market for a long time, right? That's the most important thing is to have the architecture of the world right. So after 1989, it was like a consensus on globalization and economics about politics. That led to this bull market for like over 20 years, right? So the next bull market is going to be when China truly becomes a balanced economy. When Chinese consumers are really up there, instead of like on the margin, Chinese consumption right now is $4 trillion. If China's economy is balanced, that would become quadruple to $16 trillion. So this is going to be a gigantic bull market. So for all of us, ladies and gentlemen, for all the people here, the number one trick for financial success is to live long. And to live long, wait for the next cycle. You know, why Warren Buffett is so rich? Because he lives so long. So he's like, he waited for this bull market when he was close to his 80 years old. And he has made most of his money since then. So this is, if we all live long, healthy, and live long, we'll all become rich. That's the real story. I'll stop here.